This conference will now be recorded.
I haven't said anything. What didn't need to record.
It's all right.
Anyway, okay, roll call, please.
Vice Chair Ellsworth,
Here.
Commissioner Hernandez Mejia,
Here.
Commissioner Berlin, Commissioner Corning,
Here.
Commissioner Bartel,
Here.
Commissioner Lassen.
Here.
Okay. We are all here or present. I'm going to dispense with the flag salute due to the COVID fact that we're not all here. Next thing on our agenda for the first time, we have Commissioner Annabelle
Hernandez Mejia.
Medea.
Mejia.
Anyway,
I'm going to make sure we're all, so I think the mics are set up. You have to press the button in order to speak, and it helps everyone if you get your mouth as close as you can to the front.
okay. Anyway, Annabelle, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got volunteered for this position.
What? Okay. Yes.
Excuse me.
It's my first time. Oh, yeah. All right. Is this good? All right. So I've been with FHDC, and that stands for Farm Worker Housing Development Corporation here in town for just short of 3 years now. And within that, my position's been resident leadership coordinator, trying to organize residents so that they are able to develop their skills and also even go on beyond the field work. Also generating programs with community partner programs, so that again, we offer more opportunities and activities for not only our children, but also the adult residents. Within that, I've little by little been getting more involved with school district, being in their superintendent search committees, also just kind of going around trying to look for opportunities, even for my own residents, to advocate and learn how to navigate, again, these systems. And within that, I was informed that there was a position available here with the Planning Commission, and I stepped up. Mostly my hometown, I had been part of the Chamber of Commerce, and I had always noticed it's a small town, half the size of Woodburn, and I saw that it lacked some sense of strategic planning, and that's one of the areas I'm really hoping I am able to fulfill and help out here in this role.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for stepping up and helping out. Next is minutes. Drafts of the last minutes are not yet finalized. We will dispense with that. Business from the audience that is not otherwise on our agenda. Okay, hearing none. Communications.
The only communication I have is related to the meeting we're going to have. I think Colin may read that into the record. Is that right, Colin? It's a letter that you have in front of you, I think. I can grab one up here. I can read it into the record when we get there.
Okay. The next is a workshop on rent burden. OAR, I'm not sure what that stands for, 813-112. Colin.
Good evening, all. This is Colin Cortez, Senior Planner at the City of Woodburn. And just for the moment, I'll take off my mask so everyone can actually hear me better, especially for those participating from home. So I'll give a very short slide presentation about what this agenda item is. So as the memo described, essentially, the state legislature a few years ago passed a law requiring several cities that have a lot of rent burdened households, meaning a city where more than a quarter of the households pay at least half of their income on rent, to have a meeting at least once a year to talk about affordable housing. And so this meeting is in service of that state law. The city's been doing it now for 3 or 4 years in compliance with that law. And the state was very prescriptive. So there's specific topics that the state legislation actually requires to be discussed. And I'll be showing those more a little farther on. The OAR in particular, I was just mentioned, that's an acronym for the Oregon Administrative Rule. That's how the state codified the requirement. It's not a formal public hearing. There's no specific action item required other than to have the meeting and then report what people have said to the state. So it's very open-ended other than the 3 topics specified. We've done it before with the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission grapples very much with development, which includes housing. And so I guess now by custom, it's the venue by which we have the meeting to meet the state requirement. And probably what will happen is, has been done before, is after the meeting, staff will package a little summary and then provide a briefing memo to the city council. So on the slide in front of you, in English and Spanish, are the 3 specific topics from the administrative rule that are required to be addressed as part of the meeting. And at this point, with some assistance in translation from Karina as needed, Spanish to English or vice versa. Otherwise, the intention is for the floor to be opened up to anyone in the audience or at home who wishes to talk to any of these things. And as the memo suggested, I think the estimated time was budgeted to be anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour, but it'll just take the time that it needs to.
And Mr. Chair, if you want to go back 1 slide, Colin, Karina, if you wouldn't mind, could you just give a quick summary of that in Spanish for anyone listening? And then we'll go to the next slide and kind of open the floor up. Does that sound all right, Mr. Chair?
He's on mute. I can't.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Estamos hablando con respecto a la ley 4006, un poco que involucra que todas las ciudades, en este caso la de Woodburn, habla en cuanto a la población y a la carga de rentas que ésta tiene. Normalmente se pide que haya esas reuniones comunitarias y lo hemos venido haciendo 3 o 4 durante los 3 o últimos 4 años. Esto habla un poco acerca de la facilidad que pudiera haber para que las personas pudieran tener mayor acceso a la renta o al arriendo de esto. Y también la comisión se reúne para sostener dentro de la ciudad para sostener esto cumpliendo las leyes tal como lo requiere la comisión.
Oh, Mr. Chair, I wanted to add a few more things before they slip my mind. The first was we received 1 letter of testimony so far from Farm Worker Housing Development Corporation. So we wanted to acknowledge that we did have it and we left copies on the dais for you all. And then similar to what we had in previous years, we have a summary handout in English and Spanish. We have print copies here in the council chambers, and we also have copies online. We have a page specifically about Red Burton for those who are interested, which is about organizations and agencies that provide housing services, including financial assistance. And then lastly, the state kindly asks us that we collect names and affiliations of people who do talk about affordable housing at the meeting. We do have a sign-up sheet here in the chamber, and particularly for those who are at home or participating virtually, if you do comment, we very much would like to have your full name and address, please.
Karina, you think you can remember that and try that one?
Yeah, I try to my best. De acuerdo a esta misma solicitud que el mismo estado pide, hay copias disponibles con el resumen de todo lo que se está hablando aquí. Aquí pueden solicitarlas. O también se requiere que las personas que están asistiendo se registren sus nombres y sus afiliaciones. Todos aquellos que están aquí quedarán registrados, pero también aquellas personas que estén participando virtualmente pueden llamarnos y puedan proveernos su nombre y sus datos.
Okay. I think we'll start with people here that might wish to testify? And if you do, raise your hand if you wish to testify. Okay. Okay. What? We want them to come forward to here and or there and give their name and
Pueden arrimar al micrófono, empiecen por dar su nombre, nombre completo, dirección y número de teléfono, por favor, y luego dar su testimonio.
Okay, mi nombre es María Theresa Amador. Yo vivo en los departamentos del Nuevo Amanecer. Dirección es 1274 5TH Street. Y llevo viviendo 5 años ahí. Y para mí, pues es una experiencia bien bonita porque yo soy madre soltera. Tengo 4 hijos. Tengo un hijo que es autista. Y para mí, pues como yo la verdad no gano mucho, soy de bajos recursos y para haber obtenido esa vivienda para mí es un privilegio y pues a mí me gustaría que haya más viviendas de bajos recursos para personas como yo de bajos recursos tuvieran esa oportunidad de tener una vivienda digna y pues tener el espacio como yo con mis hijos y sentirme segura, como no estar preocupada cómo voy a pagar la renta cada vez que llega la renta. Si no existieran esos departamentos, yo pienso que estaría compartiendo vivienda con otras familias porque mi sueldo no alcanzaría para pagar una renta normal. Y pues a veces me da sentimiento porque conocí a mi amiga, también es madre soltera igual que yo, rentaba a veces con lo que ganaba le alcanzaba para rentar una sala de una vivienda y con sus 3 hijos, la verdad es muy difícil. Me gustaría que apoyaran ese para obtener más viviendas de bajos recursos. Gracias y es todo.
Thank you.
Karina, would you mind
Yes.
summarizing that? in English,
Mhm.
please?
My name is Maria Teresa Amador. I live in Nuevo Amanecer, 1274 5th Street. I've been living there for 5 years, and I can say that this has been a really nice experience. Me as a single mom, I have 4 kids, and one of them is autistic. Being a family with low resources, I feel like living there is a privilege, and I would like other people to have the same opportunity because by me being there or living there, I feel safe and I don't have to be worried like at the end of the month if I'm going to be able to pay the rent or not. And this is something that I would like the opportunity others to have. Like I had a friend before and she was a single mom like me and she had 3 kids and she could only afford to rent a living room for her and her kids. So I would like others to be able to have access to these families with low income to have access to be able to rent.
Mi nombre es Marta, pero yo tengo 2 testimonios. El primero es escrito por una amiga mía, no pudo venir, ella lo mandó escrito y el segundo va a ser el mío. Entonces voy a empezar con el de ella. Mi nombre es Adriana Aguilar y vivo aquí en Woodward. La verdad, cada vez las rentas son mucho más caras y el sueldo es muy bajo. Por ejemplo, en mi caso, vivo en un departamento donde solo tiene 2 habitaciones y somos 7 personas y no tenemos dinero para un departamento más grande. Así que usamos la sala para dormir y estamos todos amontonados. La cantidad de mi renta es de $1,330, sin contar que hay más gastos. Urgen más departamentos de bajos recursos y más ayuda. Al igual manera, los vecinos que comparten mi misma opinión. No hay suficientes departamentos. Ellos pagan mucho más que yo y lo peor es que los dueños no pueden esperar ni un día más después del 5 de cada mes porque cobran hasta $50 por retraso por día. Y pues no siempre los empleadores pagan a tiempo. En los trabajos deberían dar más oportunidad, subir el sueldo o hacer más departamentos de bajos recursos para personas como nosotros. Y ella vive en el 1154 Kennedy Street, aquí en Woodburn, Oregon. Do
we want to summarize that before we go to the next section?
Yes. Hi, my name is Maria, and I have two testimonies. One is for my friend, and one for myself. She couldn't come today, but I'm going to start with hers. Her name is Adriana Aguilar. She lives in Woodburn, and she wants to mention that the rent is really expensive and the salaries are really low. She lives in a 2-bedroom apartment, and it's 7 people living in the apartment. They have to use the living room to sleep. The cost of that apartment is $1,330 plus the rest of the expenses. She would like that there will be more apartments for low resources. Like a neighbor mentioned to her that they also rent some other apartments, and the owners cannot wait if you do a late payment, charging you even $50 per day every time you're late. And at work, they don't always pay you on time. So that's something that makes it harder. And she lives in 1154 Kennedy Street.
Ok, entonces sigo yo. Entonces mi nombre no es María, es Marta López y también vivo en las propiedades de FHDC en una vivienda de bajos recursos. Y como dijo mi compañera, igual estoy agradecida porque hay mucha gente que no tiene esa oportunidad. Soy voluntaria en una organización de bajos recursos, llevamos mascarillas a las casas de las personas y de primera mano he visto la necesidad de la gente en esos apartamentos que no son aptos para que una persona viva. Es un apartamento que tiene 2 recámaras, una recámara y viven hasta 8 personas, algunos en la sala, o yo he visto departamentos que tienen camas incluso en la cocina porque el espacio es muy pequeño. Son gentes que vienen no de México, no recuerdo el lugar, pero vienen de otros lugares y no tienen un acceso a departamentos de bajos recursos. Viven en un lugar donde no es salubre, donde no se puede vivir y es por la falta de departamentos de bajos recursos. Entonces creo que sí urge que se hagan ese tipo de departamentos porque yo soy privilegiada por vivir donde vivo, pero hay mucha gente que no lo es. Otra cosa también que quiero agregar es de que muchas veces pensamos, y la pregunta más bien aquí sería, ustedes dijeron que hace como 2 o 3 años que están teniendo estas reuniones y la pregunta iba, ¿dónde está en ustedes cómo involucran a la comunidad hispana? Porque es mucha gente hispana la que está viviendo en Woodburn y yo aquí nada más veo los que somos invitados por Anabel. Entonces, en los años anteriores, ¿cuándo han involucrado o cuál es la manera para involucrar a la gente hispana para que venga aquí y traiga los problemas que se están viviendo en la ciudad? Porque en un departamento de bajos recursos hay mucha necesidad, pero si ustedes no involucran a la gente que necesita, que pueda venir a hablar, si no tienen la manera de llegar a ellos, nunca lo van a ver. Entonces, esa es la pregunta. ¿Cómo hicieron antes para involucrar a la gente hispana y qué piensan hacer en el futuro para que esa gente que necesita esos recursos siga viniendo? Entonces, yo sí pienso que urgen apartamentos de bajos recursos porque hay mucha necesidad y hay mucha gente que no sabe de estas reuniones, por eso no están aquí. Es todo.
Thank you very much.
I want to correct, my name is Marta. I mentioned before it was Maria, but it's Marta. I have the privilege of living in FHDC for low resource families, and I am also a volunteer to another place where we take masks to low resource living area. And I want to mention here that there are conditions where people are living, where they, for example, have a one-room apartment and there are 8 people living there. And this has to do with people that are from not necessarily Mexico, other place that I cannot remember, but it's because they do not have access to find other places where they could afford. And I could say that these are places that are not healthy to live. I also want to add that at the beginning it was mentioned that these meetings have been being done the last 2-3 years. I would like to know how would you involve the community in the previous years, because right now we are here because Annabelle told us, but otherwise there's people that also have the need and probably don't know that this is happening or they can express this. And what is the plan to get the community involved so they can come here and express their needs. And I want to add that I think these low resources apartment are needed.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Ellie Cordero y vivo en el 1150 East Cleveland Street, aquí en Woodburn. Y yo soy una de las no privilegiadas. Me da gusto, como dijo mi compañera, que ellos son privilegiadas de tener esos apartamentos. Yo tengo aproximadamente viviendo 19 años en esta ciudad. Y hace 5 años para atrás siempre había vivido en la misma lugar, en West Woodburn, del otro lado. So, mi renta ya era muy accesible, pero cuando el dueño de la casa tuvo que vender, yo tuve que buscar una casa o un apartamento. So, tengo 6 años viviendo en donde vivo ahora. Es muy difícil porque yo intenté buscar un apartamento por 7, 8 meses. Estuve buscando un apartamento. Nunca encontré un apartamento en donde yo pudiera calificar. Cuando yo busqué el apartamento, yo trabajaba en el campo, yo tenía un sueldo de $13 la hora. No calificas en ningún lado con ese sueldo. Y cuando yo intenté buscar, pues por ningún lado encontré un apartamento, ni de escasos recursos, ni con una paga de renta normal. Donde yo vivo ahorita pago $1,400 de renta. Soy una mamá soltera con 4 hijos. Pago $500 aproximadamente en biles. Tengo que tener 2 trabajos para sustentar mi hogar. Es poco difícil porque si yo tengo 2 trabajos, tengo que trabajar o tener 2 trabajos para cubrir mis necesidades. Desatiendo a mis hijos, están solos prácticamente. Es un poco difícil vivir con unas rentas tan elevadas cuando en realidad, pues, a veces puedes tener una vivienda digna sin tanto costo. Y lo sé porque yo tengo amigas conocidas y me dicen, uy, yo pago esto de renta. Y yo digo, wow, yo con eso fuera feliz, ¿verdad? Pero son las necesidades de cada uno y pues, como digo, yo tengo 2 trabajos. Yo tengo mi trabajo, le digo mi trabajo normal porque pues es mi trabajo de todo el tiempo. Y tengo otro trabajo en una organización, como dijo mi compañera Marta, llevamos mascarillas y sanitizer a la gente, damos información acerca de la enfermedad que está ahorita, ¿verdad? Entonces, pues es algo bonito servirle a la comunidad, pero también ahí te das cuenta cuáles son las necesidades, que no solo uno tiene esa necesidad, ¿verdad? Entonces, pues ahí te das cuenta que mucha gente necesita de esto. Yo pienso que sería muy importante que nos proveyeran, ¿verdad? Pues ese servicio, que hubiera más departamentos para que hubiera gente no como yo, sino que como nuestras compañeras que tienen el privilegio de vivir ahí, pues sin abandonar tanto tiempo a sus hijos. Gracias.
Mi nombre es Ellie Cordero. My name is Ellie Cordero. I live in 1150 East Cleveland. And I'm not one of the privileged ones. I'm glad that my friends mentioned that they are living there. I've been living in Woodburn for 19 years, and I was living on the other side of Woodburn. But when the owner had to sell the house, I had to start looking for an apartment. And it took me 7 to 8 months to try to find one. And it was really hard. At that time, I was working in the field, and I was making $13 an hour. And it is almost impossible to qualify with that amount of money. Nobody qualifies with that. So now I pay $1,400. I'm a single mom, and I have 4 kids. And on top of that, I have approximately $500 in bills every month. I have to work 2 jobs in order to provide for my home. I have my main job, and then I have the other job, like my friend mentioned, where we go to this other association and to cover to provide masks and sanitizers, and explains a little bit about this signal about COVID. And by doing this, I feel that I leave my kids unattended. Sometimes I talk to some friends, and they tell me how privileged they are when they are paying not that much. And I say, wow, I wish I could pay that. That will give me the opportunity not to make me feel like I'm abandoning my kids because of work. And but by doing this job, also I realize that there is a lot of need, and there is a lot of people who need this to have more access to these low income apartments, and so they don't feel that they are almost abandoning their kids in order to be able to provide for a house.
Thank you. Sir, do you wish to testify? Okay. It looks like we have a pretty good number of people online wishing to testify. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start moving left to right from the top to the bottom. As I call on you, if you wish to testify, just say so. If you don't, please indicate that to me. So the first person I have that I'm seeing is Ellie, a student. Ellie, do you wish to testify?
Yeah.
Okay. Could we get your full name, address, and phone number, please?
Okay. Ellie OrtizMendoza. I live in the Nuevo Amanecer Apartments, 1274 5th Street, apartment 11C. And my phone number?
Yes, please.
503-508-0597. And I just wanted to say that there should be more affordable housing for our agricultural and low-income families, because I just want to share that my family and I were one of the lucky ones to be accepted into these apartments. Because before, my family and I would live in a house shared with another family, and by the time my mom had enough money saved up to get us a new place, she signed up for she signed up for as many applications she could for many apartments, but because of her low income, she never qualified until Nuevo Amanecer helped us. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you, Ellie. Next, I have Matthew Jones. Matthew, did you wish to testify? I don't see Matthew coming online, so I'm going to assume no. Next is Eric.
That's me, and I'm happy just to listen to the testimony. Thank you.
Oh, that Eric.
Yeah. Thank you, Charlie.
You're welcome. That is, for those of you that don't know, that was Mayor Eric Swanson. Next is Addie Robles.
Yeah, I will testify.
Again, name, address, phone number.
My name is Aida Robles. I live in Nuevo Amanecer, 12 5th Street, apartment 23A. My phone number is 503-989-9369. I demand we have home for low income communities. There's a large population here of people of color, especially the Latino community, and from everyone that's testified, there's evidence that there needs to be low income housing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Addie. Next on my hit list is Larry Kleinman.
Yes, I'd like to make a few comments. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir, we can.
Great. So my name is Larry Kleinman. I live at 1790 Landau Drive here in Woodburn. And my phone number is 503-560-6725. So my message to the Planning Commission and to the city echoes what a number of the other folks who have spoken already have said, which is that we need more affordable housing. And the point I want to bring into this conversation is the incredible growth that Woodburn is now experiencing. In my conversation with Eric and others in the city, there's something in the neighborhood, you all know this well, 3,000 units coming online, something like 1,200 or more apartments, single family homes, just in a matter of a few years. And so my question and my challenge to you all and to the city council is, are we keeping pace even with that growth? Because I think the answer is no. And what I want to urge you to do is to set concrete metrics, concrete timeline, strategies, and investments. There's a list of the 10 recommended housing actions that you have, I believe, in your packet. That's a great place to start. But not only wasn't there enough housing before, now with the growth, we're falling even further behind. And what I'd like to do is take just 2 minutes and offer you, for folks that may not have been around a long time in the town, I want to give you a quick overview of the 50-year history of affordable housing. Why 50 years? Because exactly 50 years ago this year, the first affordable housing project, Farmdale on West Lincoln, was built by Marion County for farm workers. This 50-year period can be divided almost equally into the next 25 years, quarter century, and then the most recent 25 years. In the 25 years starting when Farmdale was built, this city had a shameful practice. In 1982, 10 years later, Marion County brought a plan for another project to the then council. They voted 6-1 against citing it in Woodburn. The comment from city councilors was, we have our quote unquote fair share, by which they meant fair share of farm workers. People should go live in Hubbard. Fast forward 10 years later, FHDC, who you've heard about this evening from some of the residents, FHDC was founded and was working to secure the property that is now Nuevo Amanecer. So this is 1992. That property was in the city's hands because a previous owner had defaulted on a CDBG loan. It took the intervention of then Governor Barbara Roberts to pressure the city council to sell that property to FHDC. So it was over their objections that happened. You can read about her account of that in her autobiography, Up the Capitol Steps. She devoted 4 pages to those experiences and those events. We built and opened, I'm a board member of FHDC, a longtime serving board member, so I say we built and opened the first phase of Nuevo Amanecer in the summer of 1994. 1996, Esperanza Court, across the street from where you are now, City Hall, was in the planning stages, 12 units, outright permitted use. The then mayor recused herself from the council and led the opposition to that project from the floor, making ridiculous arguments, thinly veiled racist arguments, I think, like we shouldn't situate farm worker housing there because it's too close to the railroad tracks, conveniently ignoring the fact that a half block away is Settlemyre Park, which was situated there by the city, even closer to the railroad tracks, obviously not a city concern. Thankfully, the council president then, Dick Jennings, led the council through a very difficult set of hearings, approved the project, even though they had no reason to disapprove it. He then became mayor and completely began to change the receptivity to this kind of housing and a commitment to affordable housing. So in the last 25 years, we've seen a huge increase in that housing compared to the previous 25. FHDC alone in Woodburn has tripled its number of units. Marion County's come in, Catholic Family Services, and that's great. But it's way insufficient for what the need is, especially in light of this growth spurt. Let me just close by saying that I've lived in and worked in this community for 44 years. And Woodburn has always been a solidly working class community, but also economically diverse. Workers and their families must never be priced out of this market, the housing market in this city. That would be an historic failure of leadership on your all's part as Planning Commission and as City Council. This time, it wouldn't be hostility though, as it was in those first 25 years I mentioned, but it would be neglect. So I commend to you to be forward-leaning, to listen to the testimony you've heard and you probably will hear in the rest of this hearing, and to take it seriously and make it, like I said, a concrete plan with metrics, timeline, strategies, and investments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kleinman. Next up, Gabriela Pena, Aware Food Bank.
Thank you for having me here this evening. Yes, my name is Gabriel Latina, and I'm the manager of Aware Food Bank there in Woodburn at 154 Harrison Street. Phone number 503-800-1698. And I am here as well to advocate for housing. If we look at our poverty level of 24%, which is Woodburn, and we have 3,000 new units coming in, where are we equitably looking at serving our community? Where are we equitably looking at bringing in opportunity for our members of the community that are already here and are underhoused and under shelter, but don't have the proper housing that anybody would look and say, this is where our community can raise their families, is what they're talking about, being in these small living rooms or just in a one-bedroom studio apartment, where I'm referring people to go into Salem to find a one-bedroom apartment that might be $550 and be something that they'd be able to afford, because there's nothing here, even with all the connections that I have, all of the networking that I've done and trying to bring wraparound resources to our community. Housing is just not one of those things. Thank you.
Thank you. Ellie Swanson.
Hi, my name is Alice M. Swanson. I reside at 885 Stark Street, Woodburn, Oregon, and my phone number is 503-828-8928. I would like to share just a couple of things. I wear a couple of hats in town, and the one that brings me here tonight is the fact that I work with folks who are houseless. More importantly, I work with people who are working houseless in the city of Woodburn, longtime residents, statistics tell me they're longtime residents. They've been unhoused for a lengthy amount of time. And we work with them, with our partners in the community who own and operate rental housing. And the process is long and laborious for us. I can't imagine putting myself in the place of those folks living in their cars, trying to be able to afford the continual application fees, as well as working 2 to 3 jobs and still being under, unfortunately, many of them are still under that cutoff line that would allow them to use some of our partner organizations that we work with through the Neighbors Day Center to subsidize rent for them. So unfortunately, I am also seeing glaringly the disparity between the population, what their living wage is, and what the affordability of housing is. So I am mainly here to hear what our folks have to say, and to hopefully hear some good solutions along offering some equity in our housing market. Thank you.
Thank you. Anthony Vliz. Are you with us, Anthony? Okay, we'll move on. Terry Gonzales.
Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry, I'm en route. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I apologize for the background noise, but thank you so much. Anthony Vliz, 1501 Dahlia Street, lifelong resident of Woodburn, former city council, former school board member, former president of Downtown Association. So obviously very active and involved in the community. But I just wanted to just say my little piece is that obviously Woodburn is some place that, you know, I think everybody said a lot about the need. So the need is there, not only in Woodburn, across the state of Oregon, across the nation. And I think that any affordable housing project that is coming to Woodburn, we should, you know, welcome that and work with that. Obviously, I know there may be concerns about taxes and all this stuff, but I think with Amazon coming in, you know, I think they'll pick up the slack. But you know, it's been said the median income is low here, and we just don't have enough affordable housing. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to purchase one of the new homes, and most of you here know the cost of those new homes being built. And I think, you know, Woodburn is already priced out, you know, especially with just really hardworking people that we have. So I just hope that not only this committee, but obviously the council and the city staff, because just make it streamline any process that any company that might come from out and want to build affordable housing, such as Wish Camper. I believe there's a project on the books there that we should do everything we can to work with these private public organizations. Thank you.
Now, Terry Gonzales.
Thanks. Terry Gonzales, 1560 East Lincoln, Woodburn. Phone number 503-951-0549. So yeah, lots of great voices tonight. I'm involved in 2 things, the Woodburn Community Meal and also the Future Woodburn Opportunity Center. And we average between 300 and 400 people a week at the community meal. And as I'm not out on the drive, but a lot of our car hops and service folks out there are saying that the folks are coming because they don't have the means because of the cost of rent, housing, that they need this food, obviously, to make ends meet. The project I'm working on with the 8 acres, one of the things that our church, who is sponsoring this project, has identified is affordable housing. And part of the 8 acres that we're looking to develop would have affordable home ownership. But as we look around and see, and it used to be a Portland problem, that where do the people in Portland live and work? And now that problem is not just in Portland, it's everywhere due to circumstances that we're all experiencing of the cost of living. My husband and I have some properties, and within those properties, we've been had the ability to help some folks who would otherwise be houseless, and be able to skip a lot of the steps and provide housing. And it's heavy on our hearts to try to figure out, how do we solve this problem? Clearly, other communities have advocacy groups that are, able to stand and advocate for community members who are being pushed to other communities to go and live, which, when we look at the carbon footprint, we look at the cost of commuting, the cost of gas, it's making it even more difficult for folks to make their way in this world. So I appreciate the words that Larry said. I think there needs to be some specific initiatives. I feel like with the growth of Woodburn, and it was just a matter of time that we would experience this kind of growth, that we should have been far and away ahead of this problem, and now we are desperately behind. So I would encourage city staff to have initiatives for any projects, apartments, housing, that there would be a certain percentage of that to be affordable housing, so it's engineered into the future of Woodburn. I also worry about our seniors. Senior States used to be an affordable place that seniors could go and live, and now the average price is over $350,000 in Senior States, and that's not affordable for seniors who are on fixed incomes. So I would say I would be willing to be involved in an advocacy group to lead this and be involved in being the voice for the folks who may not be at the table tonight. I would also say that beyond rental and housing, many of us drive up and down I-5, and we know what's on the side of the roads as far as tents, and often we feel helpless to deal with that. Well, Eugene has an incredible project called the Conestoga Project, and I would urge the city that we actively seek out ways that we can provide housing for houseless folks, so we can help them give a hand up into rentals and then a hand up into home ownership, so they can enjoy the wealth that home ownership creates. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Terry. Debbie Panton.
Yes, I would like to speak. I'd like to give my address as 1785 North Front Street. I'm a teacher at the high school. And so if I could be allowed to give that address and phone number, that'd be great. 503-980-6102. And I just like to give the perspective of being a teacher in Woodburn for over 17 years, and where it used to be rare to see houseless students, it is now what percent of each class that I have has houseless students. It's not just an issue of maybe a family of 8 living in a 2-bedroom apartment. We have family of 8 renting out 1 bedroom in a house. What that is doing to the youth is insane. And this really came out during the pandemic, where you have 8 kids at a table, all trying to do online school. That's not healthy. That is not helping with the anxiety that youth currently have, and it's not good for Woodburn. I think if we look at the Woodburn School District and see how many of the teachers are now teaching in the elementary schools, the middle school, and the high school, grew up in Woodburn. They are giving back to their community. They are valued members. And so I really encourage you to think about the future. And with all the new construction coming, it'd be really nice to have integrated affordable housing so you don't create pockets of poverty. And my father lived in Senior Estates, and I was heartbroken when Mayor Swanson told me that it's no longer limited funding. It's some of the only single level housing available to many seniors in Oregon. And it does need to be affordable. But it is devastating for students that are living in cramped quarters. And so Woodburn is going to pay one way or another. And I encourage you to pay and invest in a way that serves the community. Thank you.
Pat. I don't have a last name for Pat.
Sorry. My name is Patricia McGuffin. I live at 1720 Princeton Road, Woodburn, in the Senior Estates. Sorry if I sound funny. I'm still in the hospital, hoping I would be home by now. But I feel that this is very important, so I'm on here. I was born and raised in the Woodburn-Hubbard area. My grandfather, Thomas Workman, was mayor of Woodburn way back. My family has lived in the Woodburn and Hubbard area all my life and all their lives. Woodburn has gotten away from being there for families. Most families are middle income to low income. We need to be there for those families, and we're not there for them. We need to stand up for those families and be there for them. Woodburn needs to show initiative and change and be there for all those families. I was raised on a farm where we used all different people, all different colors, races that worked. Back then they could find apartments and live. Now it's almost impossible for them, and it's not fair and it's not right. And as a community, we need to stand up for our people, for all of humanity, and make housing affordable for everyone. Thank you very much.
Pat, before you jump off, if I could ask, what was your father's name, the mayor?
My grandfather was Thomas Workman.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Abby Velasco.
Hi, can you hear me? So I am Abby Velasco. I am a community member and a student teacher at the Woodburn High School. Been raised in Woodburn my whole life, and I've kind of seen the impact that housing has had on family, on friends, and now on the lives of many of my students. I have family members, there's like 6 people living in a 2-bedroom apartment paying over $1,300 in rent. They make too much to be able to live in farm worker housing, but barely make enough to make ends meet. So being the one person that speaks English and can navigate the internet, I'm often the person that family members come to help them apply for housing, and I'm always just shocked that I can never find anything in Woodburn and have to find applications elsewhere, usually end up having them apply somewhere in Salem. Regardless, there's always a 6-month wait or waiting for an availability or a room to be open. And now as an educator, I've had students tell me like, hey, there's 17 of us living in a 4-bedroom home. And the impact that it has, not getting enough sleep, trying to do homework, it's a lot, and it takes a toll on them. It impacts them academically as well. So just advocating for my students and family, but also as I've volunteered with Ellie in NSUSN, I've also seen the impact that it has had on families or people that are trying to get back on their feet, yet working a full-time job is not enough to be able to afford just a place to stay. So they are staying in cars, in an RV, parked outside of our parking lot. So just here to advocate for members of our community. This meeting I had no idea about. So I also think it'd be important to find other ways to advertise these types of meetings so that we can get more community input. I'd like to thank Terry. She's the one that sent out an email, and seeing the current housing situation, there was just no way I could miss it. So I think we have to do a better job of also bringing this to the community so we can get more community input. And yeah, that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if we can get Abby's address too.
Abby, did you get that? We need...
Yeah, 635 Fir Street, Woodburn, Oregon. Phone number is 503-358-3326.
And that's for FIR? Yes.
Correct.
Clara Schmidt.
My name is Clara Schmidt. I live at 270 Marshall Street in Woodburn. I have been seeing how much our community members are struggling to find affordable housing, and my family has tried to help several friends to find affordable housing and places to rent, and there's for everywhere that is affordable and in their price range, there's always a very long waiting list, and it's almost not even worth it to be put on the list because the wait is so long. And my mom works for the school district, and she's told stories about talking to parents that they couldn't afford simple things like Wi-Fi. They couldn't afford Wi-Fi for their children to do online learning during the pandemic because they were trying to keep a roof over their heads, and that takes a big toll on a student who is trying to further their education, and they have to work around all these barriers. And I've also noticed that with all the development that's been going on in Woodburn, it seems like most of the houses that are being built are very large and expensive, and for most people it would cause them to go into a lot of debt they can't afford to be able to live here. And I think that it should become a priority to use developable land for affordable housing and places for people to rent, because that's the kind of people that are living in Woodburn. Those are the kind of people that we need to serve. And I'm sure there's lots of projects that we can link arms with to make sure that those kind of places for people to live are the priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Maria Elena Guerrero. Got to open your mic up. There you go.
Thank you. I apologize for that. I should be used to this. We should all be used to this. Maria Elena Guerra, Executive Director for the Farm Worker Housing Development Corporation. I'm not going to get into presenting the Farm Worker Housing Development Corporation because Larry Kleinman already did this. I work with many organizations and people today in this meeting. Just to give you some numbers, because you know, housing is about numbers. In the United States, right now, we have 44 million rented households. 10.8 million have extremely low income or are below the poverty level. Poverty level is 30% of the median income. Our families are suffering. We have many people, and many people here has talked about the wait list that we have in affordable housing. Our affordable housing in Huervo wait list go to 2 and 3 years before a family can move in. That is impossible. It's impossible to serve a community. We have some ideas. I have written comments to this commission. The ideas are not just coming from us, are coming from a community of housing developments that we have put together a series of ideas that can benefit small and large communities. Somebody mentioned Amazon. Amazon is coming to the town. Amazon should help us because Amazon will bring more job for sure, and will and can help us nonprofit organizations to build more housing. There are some examples of cities out there that are taxing. I know we don't like to hear about taxes, but there are taxing construction companies and new construction in town to develop more affordable housing. Again, the need for affordable housing is there. One more thing that I want to secure here is that let's be cautious about what are the organizations that we support when developing housing. Private developers, especially those private developers that are not from Oregon, will take the developer fee and walk out of the door, leaving you with a community that sometimes is lost, that doesn't know how to ask for rental assistance or to work with other organizations or to ask for help. Non-profit organization and other organizations working in development houses, we stay, we work with the community, we work with other agencies, we help the community to look for resources to be a part of a larger community. One more thing is home ownership. We need affordable home ownership. There are families in the middle line. They are not able to qualify for affordable housing. They are not able to qualify either to rent a house. They need a middle place, and that is affordable home ownership. FHDC will soon start a program, educational program to help families that wants to go into home ownership, because it's not easy to own a home, and our residents needs to know that. Thank you very much for this time. I'm very thankful that the city of Woodward are taking in consideration our voices, and thank you everybody for being here.
Thank you. Nada? Am I saying that right?
Yes. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, my name's Neva. I live in 1274 5th Street. My phone number you can reach me out is 971-444-3731. Hello, everyone. I'm a high school student. I'm currently living in Nuevo Amanecer under FHDC. And I'm very thankful that me and my family can live here. We're a family of 8 living in an apartment of 3. And I want to first point out that hearing the testimonies of my neighbors and others who are struggling really, it hit deep my heart. I have a few tears came out because there's people struggling, and I really want the city council to know that no one would want to be in this position, and to reach out to these voices to hear us out and do something. So here I have a map of the units that are gonna be in Woodburn, and I would like to know which ones of these are affordable housing. Can anyone tell me, please?
Say that again, please.
I would like to know which one of the new units of the 3,000 is going to be affordable housing.
I'm not sure actually what the definition of affordable housing is.
This is Chris Kerr, the Community Development Director. So that's a map I put together of kind of recent, mostly housing projects that have happened around here. And so that's all private development that you see in there that's proposed coming into the city. I think, I want to say Colonia Unidad might be on the map that you have. I'm not sure what iteration that is. But as far as I know, that's the only subsidized housing on there, other than maybe the Catholic Charities property on Lincoln. I don't know if that's on there as well.
Yeah. Well, I want to point out that I don't think that's enough. There's a lot of families who are having similar experiences. And as I know, there's no one said, there's the Colonial Unidad too. But I'm pretty sure there should be more. So yeah, I wanted to bring that today to use my voice and to also stand to alongside my neighbors who also have the same concerns as me. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy Keller.
Yes, Nancy Keller, 1660 Finzer Way. I also live in the senior estates. I've been in Woodburn for 3 years, have lived all over the US, but have came back to Oregon. I lived here in the early 80s and lived in Woodburn at that time too. I purchased my home in 2017. I was working, got it at the estate. It was something that I felt that I could afford. Due to life circumstances, I had to retire early on disability. If I had tried to purchase a home today in Woodburn, which was one of the very affordable places, that's one of the reasons that I moved here, I couldn't do it. If for some reason, and I'm on disability, I worked my entire life. I worked for 45 years, and I had a good paying job. If for some reason I couldn't do my house and I had to go out and rent today, I couldn't afford it. I wouldn't have money left to for anything else. I knew that I was downsizing, getting ready to retire. So fortunately, I am able to get along just fine, but that's just me, one person out of all these people on here. And I live alone. I don't even have family that I'm trying to worry about. I'm just trying to take care of myself. I also volunteer at the community Woodburn meal weekly, and I see the need. I see the need of the families, the people that we serve, and how many meals we put out, and a lot of the same people that come back and new people added. And I just appreciate hearing our thoughts and listening to those of us that aren't as well spoken, but are very vested in the community. Thank you, Nancy Keller.
I think that's everybody. If there's someone online that I missed, please jump in now. Okay, I don't see anybody jumping in. Commissioners, comments?
Well, I'd like to repeat, the witnesses said it. Somebody said no one would want to be in this position. Maria Guerra said families are suffering. And Marta said, I have to ask, what is the plan? I don't know what it is.
About is that everything is so expensive that how do you create affordable housing?
Mary, can you turn on your microphone? We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry.
Say it all again, please.
Okay. I'm in agreement with what Sharon said, and my main concern is that I don't know how there can be affordable housing because it's so expensive to build today. So
If I might, I've thought a lot about this afternoon, especially as I'm reading through our WDO book. That's the Woodburn Development Ordinances and the rewrite on it. The greater city has a vision for what we want our community to look like. We have transportation system plans, we have bike path plans, we have greenway plans, we have and whatnot. We also, as we build into these new areas, we need streets, we need sewer, we need water, we need all the amenities that go with that. And we set a standard to do that. That's what this book is all about. The city, to me, from a financial standpoint, ends up in a real rock and a hard spot. And that's because of the taxing structure that is in the state of Oregon limits the amount of money that the city can tax. The city therefore doesn't have the money to go out and put in these infrastructures. And so what happens is when someone comes in and they want to build 50, 100, whatever, apartments or houses or whatever, the city charges them, understandably so, because the money's got to come from someplace, to do all of these things. And effectively what that does is, on top of materials, on top of labor, on top of a whole variety of other things, it runs the price of the units that they are building upward. The investor that's building these units, they're business people. They want what's called ROI. That is return on investment, which basically says if it costs them $100 a door to build a thing, they need to get more than that. Or if it costs them $100,000 or whatever it costs them to build that, they have to get more over. Now, they'll take it over a period of time. But as all these prices, and we contribute, ladies and gentlemen, with this, contributes to the price of this going up. It seems to me, and here's my part for the state legislature, if you want to do something, in my opinion, provide monies so that these infrastructure items that need to be put in place, streets, sewer, water, bicycle paths, you name it, that gets paid for by the state. Because right now it gets passed on to the next renter and the homeowners. And the other thing that happens too is as these units, new units come online, that sets the real property value for every other unit in town. If those units get sold, they get sold at a price that is reflective of what new units have. It sets the whole standard right on down the line. If there was some way that the state could come in, the state's the one asking us to do this. The state is the one saying, tell us what we need to do. It seems to me if they could do that, if they could pay all these fees and maybe give a little even property tax relief for a portion of those units that they wish to have as to accommodate low income, affordable housing, to be a way, in my mind, in the real world, that they can help. I'm sorry, I strongly suspect Salem's not going to do that. I said my piece. Anybody else? Okay.
Charlie, this is Commissioner Ellsworth.
Yes, Lisa, go ahead.
So as I'm listening to these stories, it, like one of the speakers mentioned, it brings a tear to her eye. I also grew up with a single mom, and she shared her house or her apartment or her rent with another single mom. So we had 2 single moms and 8 kids between them. We were on subsidized housing, subsidized food, and so forth. I didn't realize until I was older and actually a part of the Woodburn community that I was considered homeless as a kid or dealing with housing insecurity. I also remember 5 of us in a 1-bedroom studio. I grew up very often hungry. As a family, we would couch surf. We would move in with family members if we needed to. Trying to find rent if you got evicted or your apartment or your house got sold. Trying to get into another place to live was extremely difficult. So I just want to thank everybody that was on this call. I am listening to your stories. It hurts my heart to hear that we have so many families struggling. And I really want you to know that I understand, that I have been there. At the same time, I'm also a bit of a realist, and I really appreciate what Charlie said, because as much as I would like to be a part of the city that says, okay, well, the city is going to donate X amount of land and build housing, the city can't build housing. We don't own the properties. The property owners sells it to a developer, and the developer wants to get their return on investment. I agree 100%, Charlie, that the state of Oregon needs to step up and come up with solutions that are long-term, equitable, and focused on helping all of our community thrive. It's not going to happen if we continue as a city having to scrape together pennies to fill the potholes, to build the roads. And let's not even get into building the schools, because the other part of this is as we grow, those children are going to need a place to go to school. So for me, the state also needs to step up and start helping the cities, all of our cities, deal with the infrastructure issues, rebuild our streets, make sure that we have good schools, safe schools. And you can't just rely on all the cities to do this. We don't have the funding, we don't have the legislative power, and we don't have the legal right to build housing. I mean, that's just not what we do as a city. It's not within our bounds. When it comes to the state of Oregon, we've got to quit pointing fingers and telling people to buck up, because as I've listened to all of these people speak, they are hardworking, deserving members of our community. There's no question in my mind that the woman working 2 and 3 jobs would rather work 1 job and be at home with her family at night. Thank you all for coming, and thank you all for sharing your stories. They are powerful, they're meaningful, and I hope that we can continue to share these stories with the Capitol and get some actual change at that level. Thank you.
For those of you online, that was Lisa Ellsworth. She's one of our commissioners. Anything else on the subject?
I just wanted to say, the document that Maria Elena Guerra sent has, at least 2 good suggestions that don't involve a tax as far as I know. I mean, maybe we could ask the city council to look at that. Where does this go?
Okay, I'm going to close the rent burden workshop and move on to the next item is a public hearing for legislative amendment 2101, Following our last workshop on January 13th, a public hearing of legislative amendments of the Woodburn Development Ordinance to administer fully the transportation system plan, as well as clarify, strengthen, and develop standards related to transportation improvements associated with land development. Staff recommendations for the commission recommends approval and move it on to the city council. Do we have a presentation about this? Oh.
Of course, I had it in the on always position. Let me start over again. This is Colin Cortez, Senior Planner. Let me pause and see if our Assistant City Attorney, Mackenzie Granum, has a script to read, which is slightly different than the script the chair is used to for a quasi-judicial item. This one's legislative, so it's a little different. I understand from the director, Mackenzie will be reading something like that.
Colin, there's no public hearing statement for legislative items, so you can just move on to staff report, and then following staff report, an opportunity for public testimony is what comes next, and then deliberation by the Planning Commission. And tonight we're just looking for a recommendation, like you mentioned, to the City Council. Whether that's a recommendation to forward this legislative item as presented by staff, or to forward with recommendation to adopt with any changes, or recommendation not to adopt the legislative items. So that's all we're looking for this evening. Thank you.
And Mackenzie, we're not required to do declarations as well, correct?
Nope, not on legislative items. So on this piece, you can have an opinion, bring in outside opinions. It's a little bit more flexibility and freedom than you do on quasi-judicial items.
Okay.
Thank you. And I also take a moment to thank Karina for her translation services for Rent Burden, and wish her a good night. So with that, I'll move on to the slide presentation. So it is a public hearing for a legislative item. So in more day-to-day terms, that means a revision to the zoning code, the Woodburn Development Ordinance. So a chance to change law and policy. So instead of looking at something, quote, quasi-judicial, unquote, so someone's specific development project for a specific piece of land, where there's more judicial due process, this one is much more open-ended, as is the case when a body considers making changes to policy and law. In this case specifically, it's classified as what's called the type 5 land use action, which is the highest type, the one that has the most discretion and leeway. It's structured so that the Planning Commission gets to make a formal recommendation on this kind of change for the City Council to consider and then make its own decision. To keep it short for this package, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission consider the staff report and attachments, and specifically to recommend approval of the amendment to the City Council. So a little bit of background. It was first introduced to the Commission last fall, back on September 23rd in a first workshop. We introduced the project and got some initial ideas from the Commission and feedback. Then there was a second workshop last month that presented a specific draft. A draft 2 because draft internally worked on a draft 1. And after a lot of back and forth, made many revisions concerning the feedback we'd gotten from the Commission, and came up with a draft 2 to present to you for the first time. Based on feedback from the Commission during that work session, attached is draft 3, which is meant essentially to be what we call an adoption ready draft. And for this one also, staff put in a lot of comments in the margins of the draft to provide a lot of comments that would explain or describe the purpose of a particular edit. So to summarize what happened since the last workshop, there were 2 specific pieces that staff responded to. One was to get rid of an edit that would have narrowed the minimum width for parking stalls. So the standard will remain as it is in the code today, which is 9 feet. And then the second was, I believe it was Commissioner Bartel asked about electric vehicle parking in response to an edit in the draft. and for statistics of the usage of the charging station at the Memorial Transit Center, the parking ride. And thankfully, I was able to contact a representative at ODOT who forwarded some statistics that are summarized on the slide. So to recap, there's one machine now with 2 parking stalls, with 2 voltage levels of charging, reasonably fast and way fast, essentially. And then last calendar year, there was almost 6,000 hours spent charging vehicles across almost 400 sessions or visits. And basically this averages out to about every weekday last year, there were 1 or 2 vehicles charging in the lot, which frankly was a little more than even I expected. And ODOT also happened to mention that there's enough usage they will be upgrading the charging equipment this summer and adding at least 1 more charger.
Colin, I think
Colin, this is Mackenzie. It's actually going to be a lot more than 1. We're considering a proposal right now to add 8 new chargers. They probably won't come all at once. This would be a proposal over the next 3 to 5 years, but definitely quite a bit of an increase at the transit center.
I'd say the key takeaway is apparently there's enough usage to keep the installation as well as expand it. Not to rush anything, but after as much discussion as you'd like to take tonight and deliberation, this is generally what the motion would look like if you were inclined to follow the staff recommendation. I do want to stress that an approach you can take is to essentially say, we as a commission do recommend approval, but there are a couple things we'd like the council to take into consideration. That may not necessarily be an edit to the draft, but might be a topic or issue that you want them to keep in mind as context for the recommendation. So that is an approach you can take. I would be happy to pass that along to the council in the memo.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Colin at this time?
I don't have any. There's something in the community. Somebody had made a comment on the community post about the parking, by the freeway, that they've been stealing catalytic converters. Are there cameras up there?
I do not know for sure. From what I understand, the Department of Transportation manages the parking ride. And I haven't noticed any camera equipment, but of course I didn't look for that, so I just don't know.
I mean, that would be something that I think is important, especially as more people leave it, leave their vehicles there.
I mean, I think what we can do is we can talk with our transit department.
I don't think catalytic converters and electric vehicles go together.
But there are still people with those kind of cars, gasoline cars.
But that wouldn't be true, but it wouldn't be an.
Oh, it was just a side thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I did have one question. So a lot of this is about alleyways, adding alleyways. Is the city responsible for an alleyway, keeping an alleyway paved and everything the same as it would be in a street?
If it's accepted as public right-of-way, yes, it would be owned and maintained by the city.
But these would always be accepted as public right-of-way, is that right?
The draft is set up so something that looks and feels like an alley can be maintained in 1 of 2 ways. So it can be an alley, as most people kind of understand it. So it'd be maintained and owned by the city. And the other option in the code is phrased as what's called a shared rear lane, which would still look and function like an alley, but the difference would be it would be a tract of land maintained by a private party, probably a homeowners association or some other association, but still be open to the public and emergency responders. It was written that way specifically so our public works department for new development particularly has broad discretion about whether to accept an alley as public or leave it as private.
So there could be new building where there's a condo that goes on a shared rear lane and it looks like kind of like a street when they move in, but then eventually it's not maintained by the city?
It would look like probably, I wouldn't say a street, but an alley, but a little wider than they were built in the olden days. So more towards 20 feet width of pavement. And if the city maintains it, it'd be maintained as well as any city street.
Right.
And if left to private parties, it would be as maintained as private parties would want them to be.
So say a typical building with condos in it, it has a driveway and well, I guess maybe they have a sidewalk to their back fence or something. I mean, like the ones we've seen in Smith Creek. They're narrow. So it's possible that that could be built and it would be a shared street, but not something that's maintained over time by the city?
Yes, I'd say another way to think of it is if the alley is not public right of way, it's not much different than a common area or common lawn. The difference being it would be paved and it's meant particularly for cars and trucks. Right, yes. Mhm. Like a common driveway in a sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can come back and ask staff some more questions in a little bit, but this is a public hearing. Is there any testimony in favor of the rewrite of the WDO? And since looks like it's mostly us, I don't see anybody chiming in. Is there any testimony in opposition? Okay, hearing none, I will go ahead and close the public hearing. And it is time, commissioners, to deliberate. Do you have any comments one way or the other? Additional comments one way or the other?
I just want to thank staff for their hard work and taking our comments and actually coming back with a almost perfect draft.
You know, I would really echo that too. Just reading through this is a huge project. I can't imagine what's involved with actually making all the changes. And I think, Colin, you get credit for that, don't you? You keep saying staff, but I think it's you.
Very much so, sir. Thank you for recognizing that.
Hearing no more deliberation.
Actually, this is Deb Bartel, Commissioner Bartel. Colin, thank you so much for following up on the electronic car and the plug-in station information. I really, truly appreciate that. And I didn't get a chance to say that a little bit earlier, but thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And Colin, would you put up that last slide with the recommended motion?
Chair will hear motions to recommend to City Council.
So I move that we recommend the council recommend that we approve the legislative amendment LA 21-01 as recommended by staff in the staff report.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve and move on to City Council Legislative Amendment 21-01. Is there any more comments before? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, same. Hearing none, motion carries. Oh, somebody want to say something? Okay. Motion carries. Is there any other business from the commission? Okay. Updates from staff?
I have a few things, Mr. Chair. Mostly scheduling wise. I'm glad you all enjoyed that legislative update because we have two more coming right down the pike that we're going to be doing this spring. The bigger one is what we call this middle housing amendments that we have to do. Super brief. This is a requirement that the city make modifications to our zoning code in response to legislative changes that happen and some rules that have been written. We've discussed it a little bit before. It essentially adds additional density opportunities, more dense housing, different housing types in single family zones. That's the biggest change. We had a consultant work on this for probably 9 months and provide a report to you as well as the city council. So we're putting some of that together for a draft for you. And I think we're going to have a workshop with you in, I believe, 30 days. Colin's going to lead that legislative item as well. That's more WDO amendments, zoning code amendments. The other item is we're going to make a much smaller change to our tree code. All changes to the tree code are interesting to everyone and often controversial. So while it's a small change to the code, we'll spend some time on it. We're going to have some more draft language on that. That came from a city council provided direction. They wanted to make some modifications. Some of it is, I think the genesis for it was to make sure that we had enough regulatory ability to prosecute violators. We want some more clarity in our tree code. This is about cutting down trees more than anything else, which trees get protected. And some of it is staff has a lot of experience dealing with people, and we'd like to see a few edits in there that we think might make it clearer and easier for everybody. So we'll talk about those. But those are coming up just over the next probably 4 months or so. We're going to have some more hearings on those. Aside from those, I'm just looking at my short list of quasi-judicial items. Private projects you're going to be hearing that we're bringing through that have been deemed complete, which means those applications are moving forward. That's next week, I think, or no, I'm sorry, 2 weeks from now. We're going to have 2 quasi-judicial items on. One is expansion of the Trapala restaurant here downtown, right off First. And the other is a small subdivision off Cooley Road, I think will be on. Oh, excuse me, Hardcastle, excuse me. We have another smaller one off Cooley Road that's probably 2 weeks beyond that. I also wanted to, I'm also looking at 2 applications that came in. I often give you what I call, I send emails out for what I call ex parte, not to have ex parte contacts as a reminder. When we get an application in, particularly if it's a larger project or something that's going to get a lot of attention, I or someone on staff usually send out an email to you letting you know it's out there, and please don't have, as much as you can, any ex parte contact regarding the project. In other words, don't have contact outside the room with, say, the applicant or your neighbors about them, as much as you can. If you do have discussions with people about a project that's coming in and that you're going to hear about, it's perfectly fine. You just have to make sure you disclose here during our meeting that you had it and what you discussed. But as much as you can, let people know that you shouldn't be having discussions outside the hearing, and they can call staff, they can ask us any questions they like, get all the information they want about the project. And if they have any testimony, we'll make sure that you guys get it. That's the way to do it in a formal hearing. I say that because I'm not sure I gave you an ex parte sort of warning email that I often send out for 2 projects. One is the Mill Creek PUD that's been submitted that we're looking at. That's a 90-ish units, Colin?
This is the south end of Brown Street, 95 homes.
It's 95 homes. It's at the very end of Brown Street. If you take it all the way to the end past the trailer park. The property was annexed in not very long ago, right?
4 years ago.
Oh, 4 years ago. Excuse me. So a big subdivision that's coming in down there. It's, probably 2/3 single family, some attached housing. And the other larger one is we have an application that's come in for a large industrial project. It's another e-distribution center in our SWR, which is our Southwest District. It's at the end of Evergreen. And if you can picture where Stacy Allison's would extend if it were going south, as well as the current terminus of Evergreen, that large farm there. It's one of the White's properties. We have an e-distribution center that's a little over 800,000 square feet. So it's a big center. We're not Amazon style, but that kind of blows everything else away. 800,000+ square feet, a big e-commerce center. So that's coming. We're doing that review now. You should expect those in, that one in probably 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And I expect the Mill Creek to come before you. All right, those are my updates. We have lots of private projects going on. We're very busy, a lot coming down the pipe.
I'll go ahead and say thank you ahead of time for those reminders, because being new, I'm still just making sure I don't do anything or speak of anything. So much appreciated, Chris.
Do you want these back?
I think so.
We'll take them off your hands if you want. Yeah.
Yeah, we may
Because
reuse them.
I assume when this gets all done, we'll get a new book without all the.
Very much so.
stuff. So you might as well keep this one for city council.
That's a good idea. Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Do you want us
Okay.
to drop off the ones we have here at home or just bring them when we come to the next meeting?
Oh, I'm sure the next meeting will be fine. Yeah.
Next meeting will be fine. Okay, Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I second.
Been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Online people, thank you.